Sunday, September 14th is Cup Finals afternoon at Hippodrome 3R, as we like to call it, or we can call it Trois Rivieres. I don't know.
Go
I'm
for
not
it.
Canadian, so I can't say it. Matt, how about you? You want to take a shot?
Hippodrome Trois Rivieres
There
or
you go. I
Hippodrome
think
3R. Anyway, it's
well,
a nice half-mile racetrack in Quebec, and they got some big Cup final races for Quebec breds, 2 and 3 year olds, and always a fun time of year at the Hippodrome.
and absolutely, you can watch all of those races live, and you can get free harness IPPs by checking out the QR code on the screen. We're going to take a look at two of the races on the card. The card starts at noon, as we said. And when you look at them, there's a bunch of races here. It's worth almost a $500,000. So there's big money on the line. We're going to start with race number 3 as we focus on the fillies today. We're all our attention on the ladies here. We're going to start with the 3-year-old filly trotters. They're going for $65,000 Canadian. As you can see, there's an entry in this field. And, I look at this race and you look at the morning line right away and you can see it's pretty wide open on paper, Matt.
Yeah, you can certainly make an argument that it's wide open on paper. It's worth taking note that the entry, the 1 and 1A, don't start inside. They start, I believe, post 5 and post 6. So more towards the outer part of the gate on a half-mile track. So that factors into people's handicapping a lot, especially when they kind of subliminally see a number 1 uh, not inside. So take note of that. And with that said, it kind of does change my opinion on whether to use that half of the entry, which I ended up not using. But there are a lot of nice, consistent fillies in this race, and pretty, for the most part, well behaved. As you can see by the morning line, there really is tough to make a case for a heavy favorite in here.
Well, three of these horses are coming out of the same race. It's a race on September 3rd at Rideau. It was actually the first race on the card. We're going to take a look at that replay because since they're all coming out of it. And the horse that's coming wide right now from fifth is the 7 horse, Chick Chalk Rose, who's going to make a really nice move to the front here. Whereas some of the other ones in here, Miss Charm is kind of sitting the pocket in the race, and Solio is sitting the 3-hole. What I think is interesting is not just that Chick Chalk Rose, made a really nice move and closed well, is that, you know, another horse in this race, the horse that was sitting the 3-hole Solio, didn't have that much, but Miss Charm was kind of closing late in the mile. It looked like, was kind of gapping out in the pocket and then kind of came on late and, looked like he had some life there. So I thought those were all interesting things to at least, bring attention to, you know, for me, I looked at this race and I thought to myself, Solio has been dominating, in these races. If you look, won the last time they had one of these cup races, was second and third, so pretty strong. And Miss Charm is another one that's been doing really, really well, has 3 wins and a second, Matt.
What do you make of the driver on number 3, Solio?
Well, obviously that's a big plus because I went and checked some of the stats here. Uh, is it Wah? We'll call it Wah. Drove him last time, and he's 14 for 150 at the H3R, right? And the driver before that, Delisle, is 10 for 143. So to me, you're getting Dan Dubé in the bike. That's a pretty nice bump up and nice inside post too.
Yeah, for people who might not be familiar with the product up in Quebec, they certainly are familiar with Dan Dubé, who has been a fixture both coming from Canada and in the U.S. for what, 3 decades now, maybe. And every year it seems like he goes home, so to speak, and competes in these cup races and is usually successful. And I don't want to kind of make it like obvious, like, oh, I'm going to Solio. I like him because I like her because of Dan Dubé. But like you mentioned, it is a huge positive, and I think Dubé Command is obviously familiar enough with the local circuit and commands enough respect that from an inside post with some speed and coming off, an even fourth place finish with 3 wins prior to that, I think Dubé has a legit shot to take control early and at least maybe he'll yield to one, either be on the front end or sit a pocket trip or right off the pace and have the biggest shot come crunch time.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we take a look at our picks here for this race? And I did go with Solio as well. One of my thinking was I think this horse is just better on the half-mile track, and obviously I like the driver upgrade here. I feel like Miss Charm is probably going to leave out pretty hard, and Solio is going to end up sitting a nice trip in the pocket.
Mhm.
My concern was that Solio's last couple of races, last three races really weren't as good as the races before that, and maybe this one's going in the wrong direction, which is why I went with her third, and I went with Chick Chalk Rose, who, as we saw, had that bad cover last time. The post isn't ideal, but hopefully, they'll push away from the gate here and get good position. So I went 3-7-2, and Matt went with the three as well, Matt.
Yep, for basically the same reasons that you stated. I also used for the third spot. I used the 4 Kinder Kahina. Um, when she trots, she's good, and she's one of the few horses here that maybe is coming off made a few miscues for a mostly well-behaved group, but she can trot when she stays flat, and she held okay after a tough, a long uncovered grind. So if she minds her manners and gets her way like 4th or 5th here, which is quite possible, I can certainly see her being a late presence, as she did 4 back over this track when she came from off the pace to win. So nothing, no big prices here. I'm just kind of sticking inside, as you are too, at least for your top choice.
Well, we agreed in this race, but we're not going to agree in the next one, which is race number 8. We're going to flip ahead to the 3-year-old filly Pace, which also goes for 65,000 Canadian on the card here. And, again, the morning line kind of says that this race is somewhat wide open, though. For my money, I look at this horse, number 4, Silver Majesty, and I see a horse that, has 4 wins in these cup races, basically dominated last time by 4 lengths, has early speed. Really, what's not to like about this horse, Matt?
Also, you can, if you're a fan of 3-year-olds or state bred or province bred type horses that face more overnight foes, you can make the case maybe that's why she finished 4th last start. But you can definitely make the argument that she's in against more seasoned horses. Yeah, I would say of the locals, she's pretty close. She's pretty close to being the top one in here. I think she's proven. You see her record this year and the number of wins this year. I kind of went a different direction with the 6 Justine Ray, who I kind of like that she's been facing other maybe tougher horses outside of Quebec, Georgian, Leamington, Dresden, more of those, the Ontario circuit. And she's also done very well there. And I wonder if that circuit might be a little better than this circuit in terms of class-wise, and maybe that'll be a big advantage to her. She comes back to the Hippodrome track. Obviously, the post plays a little bit of a concern, but I don't know. I just kind of like the competition that she's been facing. I think bodes well here class-wise.
I would point out that Justine Ray has a 54-2 mark at Georgian this year, whereas Silver Majesty has a 54 mark at Georgian. So, pretty close. Not too big of a gap. There are a couple of horses getting interesting driver changes here, and those are the other two. End up on the bottom of my ticket, and we could just throw the tickets up on the screen if we want here and see which way we're looking at. I went 4-2-7. The 2. Another French name that I'm just not going to be able to pronounce. Coaratout du Lac. That's the best I got. And the 7, Mirabelle and Fente.
And Feet, maybe.
And Feet. This is the best. When you have a guy from Brooklyn, New York, trying to say French names, it really doesn't come out very well. Anyway, the 2 and the 7 both get interesting driver changes. The 2's picking up Louis Wa in the bike, and this is a horse that already has speed, and I'm sure he's going to put this horse in play from the inside, especially since the rail horse doesn't really have much early speed at all. Basically comes away 6th, 7th, and 8th every single start. So I would think he's going to put that horse in play. And the 7 horse is getting a driver change to Dan Dubé, and it's another one with early speed, who really fly on. And I'm sure Dan will be using that. So I went 4-2-7, but you went with the 6 on top, Matt.
Yeah, like I said, for reasons I stated before, just racing for the last couple of months on the Ontario smaller track circuit, coming back into Quebec. I just think maybe she has a bit of a seasoning edge here. I think the price will be okay, even though she has, you know, a good mark and's made, you know, a decent seasonal record earnings wise also. The post, I think, plays into the fact that she will be a price because, let's face it, inside horses and half-mile track tend to take a bulk of the play. And yeah, if you can overcome an outside post, it leads to a lot of value. I use Silver Majesty for reasons that we mentioned already. You use the Louis Philippe Roy angle for third, which I can certainly understand. And I use the Dan Dubé angle for third with the 7. So yeah, we agree that Silver Majesty is going to be right in the number there, but we disagree with the second and basically third place finishers. So kind of makes it interesting how we have dueling top selections here.
Well, again, these Cup finals are going to take place at 12 noon up at Hippodrome 3R, and we're going to have all the live video. We'll also have free harness IPPs for you to check out. Enjoy all the action on the early afternoon card on Sunday. Good luck.